Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Fight. I'm Mike.
I'm Zach. Welcome to The Fight.
Welcome to The Fight. Now, in full disclosure, this is our second time doing the podcast today. We already did it once, and we did the entire podcast with a muted mic. So, if you're looking for professionalism, you came to the right place.
Right.
So, please excuse us if it doesn't seem like, this is our first round today. So, the state of things today, since our last podcast, is kind of all over the place. Some things are exactly how we predicted they'd be. Some things I didn't see really coming, and I didn't see as an issue. Since Biden's been inaugurated, it's been like 3 or 4 days now, and it's already been a disaster. He's already shut down the XL pipeline, put all those people out of work. He's already announced that he's going to ban fracking on public and federal land, putting all those people out of work, taking away America's energy independence, and also ensuring that we're going to have to buy it somewhere else, OPEC countries.
Yeah, because we'd rather give our hard-earned money to some other country to come,
Right.
wealthy out of.
Right.
And meanwhile, we're going to take a bunch of people, put them on the streets, be like, I'm sorry you lost your job and your livelihood, but I'd rather give our money to someone else. And then we're going to turn around, and because we give all our money away and don't make any money, we're going to have to raise the prices and everything, so you, the American, have to pay out the ass just to keep our economy up and afloat.
Yeah. And on top of that, now on the MAGA side of things, we have a big rift going on right now within the movement, where you essentially right now have the Q people versus
Q-tips.
the rest of us, I guess you'd say. I mean, that's how I'd say it.
I think that they're similar, like they have some similarities to us, except that they're more of the conspiracy over the edge kind of. I don't see them being as realistic.
Well, I don't know, because they're not. It's not just Q people and hardcore Q people, but they're also sucking in others from our side. Like I have family members, for instance, that aren't Q people. Probably couldn't even tell you really who QAnon was till now. But the theories that we've seen over the last year from 2020, where they, all that we addressed some of it, where they were going to be going down, everything was all right. And then we saw that didn't happen. And on the 20th, they were all silent. And then the 21st, they're right back. And now it's, they were going to do something, but it was going to be too risky. The people were going to do some large-scale attack possibly, or something like that. And talking with these family members, I'll say, okay, but if it was too risky this time, it's going to be too risky next time.
Yeah,
like the threat of them retaliating, that attack that they're going to do back, yeah, you can't try to take them down without them trying to defend themselves and take you down. You know what I mean? Like, if you think you're just going to walk in there and here's a piece of paper, you guys are all corrupt and under arrest now.
It's like they're spreading false hope.
Right.
They're like, hey, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be all right. We got the country under control. America's going to be America. We're going to continue to keep it great. But realistically, it's just a way to get people's minds off of what's really going on. And then next thing you know, the Democrats are doing...
Well, it's like I told them, too. Like, okay, so say there was this big secret plan going down. You know what I mean? Then why the fuck are they talking about it? Right. If you know about it, if we know about it, then everybody knows about it, including the people you're going to be taking down. You know what I mean? And I tried to go that route too, but they are dedicated to it, man. No, just wait and see. You'll see. All the things are there if you just look at all the right things.
It's almost as bad as the fake news, like CNN and that.
Not only that, but I feel like it is, and. Not only that, but I feel like it's almost to the point where I've wondered if it's sabotage, because what it's doing is it's promoting people just becoming content and saying, people got it under control. You'll see in a couple months when they take them all down.
It's kind of funny how you see them both at Antifa rallies and at MAGA rallies too.
Wow, maybe, I don't know. I haven't really seen proof of them being at both. I mean, I know we had the Capitol thing, and yes, there was a couple of Antifa in there, but you know, it's about time that we protested. It's about time that we got a little bit rowdy. And if Antifa wants to help motivate us to do that better or quicker, then, welcome to the club, bro.
It's kind of like how they were rioting, shooting our people, and burning down businesses, and throwing these temper tantrums. And then you hit our side, not really instigating to them, but basically standing up. You saw fractions standing up and saying, armed, saying we're going to defend this block, we're going to defend these businesses, you're not taking away these people's livelihoods. And then, once we brought out the MAGA rallies and the Stop the Steal rallies, our people actually came together as a huge collective from all different angles, but they have the same end goal. And all of a sudden, those riots and those, killing of people and all that stuff, that kind of, I don't want to say it stopped because it didn't stop, but it definitely simmered, like it went down. And then they started actually engaging our people. So it's almost like now they're starting to riot again. They're starting to look what they're doing in Portland. They're starting to burn the American flag again. Starting to say, now instead of saying F Trump, now it's F Biden. We want revenge. It's we want communism. F America. F everything you stand for. And now we're gonna start doing the same shit again. And it's like they're trying to pull us in, like call us in, like we're gonna fight you. You know what I mean? Like they're being the loud ones in the room.
They're letting it be known what they're doing, and that they're doing it regardless of what anybody thinks about it. And I find it pathetically hilarious that now you still have them rioting in Portland, and you had members of the Communist Party USA with members of Antifa who rioted at the Denver, the Colorado state capitol in Denver. And now, I just heard this yesterday, I can't talk too much about it, but I guess they raided another Capitol building in another state as of just yesterday or today. I don't know, we'll find out more about that. But yeah, so there was another Capitol building that they did basically like the same thing as what happened on the 6th, where they went inside, occupied it. Or that's the gist I got from it. So you see this going on, and they're openly, calling against Biden, and they're letting their true intentions be known, and still you hear nothing out of the Democrats. Even now, with them saying, fuck Biden, fuck the Democrats, we're not with the Democrats, we hate all government, we hate the whole system, you know what I mean? Still they're quiet, because they're useful idiots, because they're going towards the same means.
Because they know eventually some patriots are going to stand up and say, we're not going to deal with this anymore. This is America. You're killing people and burning down their businesses. Like, you get what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And people, like in the last riots, you saw shop owners who were armed, who defended their business. When people breached their businesses,
they tried to defend their business.
Well,
I mean, you had people like that. Yeah, people like that poor old couple that were trying to defend their shop got laid upside the head with 2x4s and shit. I mean,
but the point I'm trying to make with this is, when you have people start defending their communities and their businesses and their homes like this, the media is quick to turn around and make them the bad guys.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
They're instantly racist or domestic
I've even heard the same thing in the past, where like someone will break into a home to rob it, like say middle of the night, and a homeowner shoots them. You know what I mean? And then there'll be all this outlash over the homeowner. And, he was just a burglar. He was just someone down on his luck. You know what I mean? He was or wasn't armed or this or that. Or that's not worth him losing his life just because he was breaking into your home and burglarizing you. You know what I mean? It's so ridiculous.
Wrong place, wrong time.
Right.
At the end of the day, it's like they almost like you said, they're useful idiots to them. So when they start this ruckus and then they end up getting, shot or hurt by somebody who's just trying to defend their lives or their family or their home, you know what I mean? Then what ends up happening is then the Democratic government wants to come out and say, well, I think it's time we get this under control now that somebody's been shot or hurt. We're going to send in some reinforcements, some heavy duty, you know what I mean? We'll send the ATF in to shoot your dog and arrest you, you know what I mean?
Right.
Those kind of people.
Well, it's always for the same motive. It's always to dial back on the Second Amendment and to get as close as they can, ultimately to removing it or making it so it's obsolete anyway. You know what I mean? And that's why they always do it whenever, it's always the opportunity whenever there's a shooting. However, most killings are done with handguns, and all the violence that you see in the inner cities with the black on black crime, with the gang crime and all that, most of it's handguns. Way more people die from handguns than from AR-15s or mass shootings like that. You know what I mean?
Let me alliterate. People don't die from handguns. People aren't dying because of the handgun. People are dying because of bad people with handguns.
Well, you know what I'm saying. They're killed by handguns. People using handguns.
No. They're killed by people with handguns.
We're not doing this rhetoric.
All right, go ahead.
Well, we all know guns don't operate themselves. And at the end of the day, they're just a tool, like anything else. Just like there are more people killed with knives by being stabbed than people are killed with firearms.
In Canada,
right. And the knife is just a tool. You don't see a move to ban knife. Well, I don't know, because that's limited to what you can carry.
Actually,
in a state like
did
New
you know
York.
knives are covered by a Second Amendment?
Right. Well, so
It's
stop New York
arms.
from restricting what size knife you can carry on you.
Democrat state, yeah.
But that gets aside from the point. Where I was going with that was that they just use it as opportunity. And the way you know this is because in all their legislation and all their rhetoric, they always act like the black market doesn't exist. You know what I mean? So they talk about background checks. They talk about this. All the things that people are already going through and already doing and are already implemented. And they talk about, well, this will keep guns out of people's hands. No, it doesn't, because the people that are committing the crimes, the people that all the shootings are coming from, are people who are buying weapons off the black market. You know what I mean? And and that's never going to include a background check. That's never going to include...
You want to know why they're not talking about the black market? It's a future motive. Right now, you hinder the law-abiding citizens as much as you can and put them in a corner to the point where there's nothing left but the black market.
Well, exactly. That's the point that I'm making, is that they're not doing this to actually make streets safer. They're doing it because it's a perfect opportunity for them to attack the Second Amendment
and say, "Hey, now we have all these laws in place, but they're not actually working. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to implement a registry. That way, if we catch you with a gun that's not registered to you, then you're a felon and you're in trouble. That means." At that point, anyone they see with a gun, whether they're legally carrying a gun or not, or whether they're doing the right thing with it or not, they're going to be checked, and they're going to see if that gun is registered to them. And if it's not, their life's over. But basically, that's what they want to do. And then slowly, those guns will be removed until, you know what I mean? That's how they chisel away at it.
Oh, yeah. Always. Well, it's just like, I don't know. I completely forgot what I was
I say... with all the pressure they're putting on, there's pressure on both sides, right? Because there's no way that, you were kind of saying this before, there's no way both ideologies can survive in America.
Oh, at the point we're at right now, absolutely not, because it's literally communism versus capitalism. You know what I mean? And there's no way that those exact opposites of each other will ever be able to coexist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I see it now, and sadly what's becoming of it is that we're just being made obsolete. You know what I mean? We have elected officials who are really part of the club. You know what I mean? They don't really have right-wing conservatism and their constituents, best interests at heart. Really, they have more in common with the elected Democrats than they do with any of us. They're all part of the same group. That's why we've never... Now, the reason you see such strong support from Democrats towards like Antifa and BLM and shit is because that's actually promoting their agenda forward. Like we talk about them being useful idiots. So whereas Republicans, they don't actually have the agenda of making America, anything that MAGA stood for, America first, or America energy dependent, or they're right in with the Democrats and believing in globalism and what I mean, the new world order in quotation marks, but it's actually a real thing that's been going on since World War II, United Nations, all of that. It is a global economy now, and that's the way they run things. And you can't really have globalism with America as the lone superpower.
Which I believe is going to lead to either a secession, because if there, it's either going to be secession or it's going to be violence,
or it could even be both, like we saw in the First World War, where first you had states secede, and then the war to keep them together and force one's ideology on the other. Which, in that case, obviously, slavery is wrong. You know what I mean? And we're very proud of the fact that we fought that war to end that. But that's another thing now where the leftist culture, they act like that was a uniquely American thing. Slavery was practiced all over the world. It was happening in Britain at the same time it was happening here. They like to say that they got rid of it first, you know what I mean? But they didn't. And to this day, it still happens in some places around the world with all different races, with all different, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, but they act like it's a uniquely American thing, and they use it to basically delegitimize our founding and our beginning. And we were so terrible back then, it has to be redone. It's an imperfect system, capitalism, their same gripes.
I'm thinking, regardless of what happens with the future, of how it's handled, whether it's secession, whether it's violence, whether it's no violence, I think the best thing you can do as an American is be prepared for you and your family's sake.
Well, I think, just to back up a touch, I think actually the first thing you should do, maybe, is pick a side. We have a lot of people right now that aren't really huge into politics, aren't really that involved, that engaged. It doesn't really affect their day-to-day life. They have, which is completely understandable. People are so busy just getting through the day-to-day, you know what I mean? They don't have time to worry about what some fucking people in suits are doing. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? If something affects them, they find a way around it. They keep moving forward. That's how people are. But these aren't normal times.
I think you're seeing a lot of people pick sides already, though. Driving through certain areas in New York, I'm seeing the come and take it flags and the Trump flags and the, the don't try to me flags and all that stuff. The Gadsden, and the Betsy Ross flag.
And on the other side, too, you see a lot of Black Lives Matter banners and Biden bumper stickers and...
So it's definitely important to know people who agree with your standings. Like maybe there's people who are more political than others, but at least find like-minded people. Maybe you find people who are like, hey, look, I don't really care what goes on. I just want to be able to protect my family. You know what I mean? And that's fine if that's where you stand. If you want to stand on the sidelines while people figure this stuff out, just be prepared for it. Be prepared for what that means, because if God forbid some violence does break out, you know what I mean, you might need to get out of Dodge. You might need to get some sort of forewarning that something's coming.
Right.
And the best way to do that is have a community, have people you talk to, have people you communicate with, and
Well, that's fine, and that takes me back to we're talking about the big rift in the movement right now with the Q people. And the rest of us on the other side. Now, MAGA is a big tent. I mean, we've got QAnon people, we've got evangelicals, we've got rebels, we've got anti-government types, small government types. We have all different kinds of subsets and groups under MAGA. And it's important that we don't get too entrenched in ourselves, you know what I mean, to where we cause these rifts and we split up, because without us united and without us as a whole, we don't stand a chance. You know what I mean? And that's why I always urge people to take seriously the rhetoric from the left and to stand opposed to it and not just let it go, because people trying to stand up on their own are nothing. They just get ran over. The power is in we the people, as a collective. You know what I mean? Nobody can do it on their own. It has to be everybody, or it's not going to work.
Just like if you see these groups coming and destroying your towns or whatever, like they're doing these mass protests where they're destroying and burning everything. If you got a good community there who wants to protect that community and their families, band together and stop these people. You have every right to do that. Doesn't mean you have to go to violence. No, I mean it may go that far. You never know. It all depends on how far they're willing to push it and how far you're willing to go to stand.
Right. Well, with the Q rift that's going on right now, I would just say that trying to look for information and to be educated and all that is good, well, and fine. That's great. That's what we all try to do, be as informed as we can, understand what's going on. But I would just say also plan for if that doesn't happen. You know what I mean? And I would say that to like people like us, like, I mentioned I've been arguing with some Q people, and I don't want to have that rift or get so entrenched in either I think it's going to happen or I don't think it's going to happen. I'd rather look at it as okay, but let's also have a plan B, and let's also try to keep up our momentum with protesting and rallying and make sure we're out there. I mean, with them controlling all three houses right now, it is important that we keep up all that momentum and we keep having those crowds at every step of the way. We should be in their face. We should be opposing them, resisting them, pushing back against them, so that let them never forget that we're here. You know what I mean? And that we're not just okay with it. And I would just urge that, and let's keep the group together. Let's not get too entrenched on little things.
It's all about America.
Right.
That's what it's always been about. You're free to make your own choices in life. You're free to be who you are. You're free to live the life you're gonna live. Yeah. You shouldn't have people trampling on your rights, and that's more than the Second Amendment. That's more than the First Amendment. That's all your rights.
Right.
You know what I mean? The pursuit of happiness and liberty and all that. You have a right to be free in America. And it's okay to have differences with other people. It's okay to have different points of view. But at some point, we got to come together and be like, all right, I may not 100% agree with you, but my end goal is the same. I want America to be America.
And we want America to be diverse and have many different opinions. I mean, it's like we always say, the only thing, the only solution to bad speech is more speech. You know what I mean? And it's with all those different ideas and opinions and everything that we are who we are. But at some point, we have to acknowledge the greater threat. Yeah. And at some point, we all have to be in it together. You know what I mean? We can't leave it up to others. We can't, in some way and in some form. Now, not everybody can do everything. Not everybody can travel. Not everybody can be an activist. But you know what I mean? You can contribute to the cause in your own way. You know what I mean?
Shoot, even if you got to go to your local town's main street and do a protest, even if only like 20 people show up, if they're seeing a bunch of stuff happen across the states and across America, eventually it's gonna get noticed. You're gonna.
And not only that, or if you know of a good activist group or whatever, support them. You know what I mean? Make sure that they can continue to do it in the future. Help it keep going. There's all different ways to support a movement. There's all different ways to get involved.
Mm-hmm. Definitely some things that I would do to be prepared, I guess, for different situations is I always make sure I'd have communications like we talk about with the group, but that also includes like radios, because if the cell towers were to ever go down or They're already hindering our communication now by censoring us on social media platforms and shadow banning people. So, I mean, who's to say that won't happen next where, hey, you can no longer text.
Right.
You know what I mean? And, I don't want to get too deep into that rabbit hole. I'm just saying, like...
But we see it because, they're shutting down platforms. They're silencing us. They're openly, labeling us as white supremacists and domestic terrorists and, using that same language and getting more and more harsh with it. And, putting people on no-fly lists, firing people, cutting them off from opportunities, silencing them. And it's real. And at the end of the day, we're living in their world. You know what I mean? It's their world. We're just living in it. So the best we can do is work ourselves back to where, we can still function as a group with those close to us in our group without using their technology, without using their products. You know what I mean? So like you talked about communications, 5-10 mile walkie-talkies, long-range walkie-talkies, radios. Learn how to use that stuff, get familiar with it.
Yep, it's very important. And also, if there's a, maybe you're in an area where there's these violent protests going on, things are being burned, and people are being hurt, because we've seen it where they've shot people, we've seen it where they put people in the hospital. Those aren't what I would consider safe areas. So maybe you got some kids, you got a family, you gotta get out of Dodge, you gotta kind of bug out a little bit, just until shit calms down, you can go back home, hopefully. It's good to have basic survival skills, because say you gotta go, hey, we're gonna go, especially if you got kids, you might have to be like, hey, we're gonna go camping for the weekend, guys, or something like that. If you see stuff's going on, things happening, and just go out there, then you're gonna have to know the basics of how to start fires and different environments, whether it's raining, whether it's snowing, whether you don't have any kindling with you. Mm-hmm. And I don't really want to go too far into like how you should prepare, what you should have, but at the end of the day, you should have a basic survival mindset and skill set, right, where you're able to provide for yourself and your family.
Water, food, warmth, shelter. Cover your basics, cover your ass. And I would also say at the very least, no matter how little you're actually able to do or prepare, in the very worst scenario, try to at least cover your own basics, so that when you join into a group or someone else's group, or maybe you have someone who's a great survivalist and outdoorsman, and you just know that people are going to be with them, when it goes down, and you're going to be part of that group. At the very least, just prepare yourself what you're going to need to take with you, to where you're not going to burden the group that you're going into. Yeah. And or somehow contribute.
If you're not like a Second Amendment advocate, or you don't have the money to be, or if you're not a protector as far as that's concerned, maybe you're more into medical stuff. Maybe you want to research some of that. Maybe you stock up on a few medical supplies. If someone accidentally gets a broken leg, or accidentally gets, I don't know, hurt somehow, some way.
That's why thought exercises can be so beneficial. If you just sometimes when you have a quiet moment, think about what these scenarios would actually look like, and the type of people you'd be with, what would be going on, the different things that group would need as a group to sustain itself, and think about the different roles that are going to be needed in there. And if you think the group might be light on a goal, maybe brush up your skills on that one, or pick that one. Or if there's something you're already good at, maybe find a secondary thing to start practicing, so that you're, a little bit of a jack of all trades.
And not only that, we're not telling you to like max out your credit cards and go bankrupt trying to be prepared. Obviously live your normal day-to-day life, live life to the fullest. The best you can. But doing a minimal. Knowledge is everything. So even if you don't have like the best gear, even if you don't have everything that's available in the market, just knowing how to substitute things with other things. Whether it's food wise, cooking wise, whether it's medical wise. You might be like, hey, maybe I don't have an actual splint, but if I use some of this wood here, you know what I mean? Knowing what wood to use for that splint, different things like that. Being able to substitute, knowing how to make rope out of grass, you know what I mean? Different skill sets like that. Even if you don't have the money to go out and buy all this stuff, at least learn the bare minimum of anything you can. Whether you choose, survival like shelters and stuff like that, and building materials, whether it's medical, whether it's, fighting, guerrilla war style, you know what I mean? If that's your thing, and defending your family and that, I would definitely, focus on that kind of stuff. Because you just never know what's going to happen. You don't know. We could end up like Mad Max one day, you know what I mean? Where it's straight up survival every day. I hope it doesn't get that way.
The sad thing is that they're coming. You know what I mean? It's coming. And ultimately, the goal is for them to just take over, consolidate, shut down the MAGA movement, end that, you know what I mean? And then continue on from there. And we're pretty much there. I mean, they've only been in power for a few days, and they are already jamming it straight through, man. They are going full bore, full speed ahead. And we as a country are going to have to make a choice very, very soon of how much are we willing to actually push back against this. Are we going to just talk about how fucked up it is, or are we willing to, maybe actually sacrifice a little bit or give up something of ourselves to attain it? Or we are going to have to make those decisions very soon. Or are we just going to let ourselves be absolved into the new society so that, you know what I mean?
I think you're starting to see people make a stand, though.
You are.
You got people, as small as it may seem, people putting out flags in front of their houses saying, come and take it, or, even just Betsy Ross flags and stuff. It's a symbol, and that symbolism is very strong. Its roots are very deep.
It is.
That's sending a message saying, don't tempt me. And then you got people who are boycotting things like Amazon and as much as possible Google, which we know they got like a monopoly on everything, so it's really hard to do that. But even encrypting your phone so that they can't make money off ads and stuff, based off of your search history and stuff like that.
Yeah.
You boycotting them as much as possible to really hurt their wallet, I guess, in the end of the day.
And really, I can't emphasize that enough. I mean, the power to affect things with your wallet is how capitalism works. You know what I mean? And the left has used this tactic of boycotting and shutting us down for decades. You know what I mean? Forever.
Not to mention, they're also doing it with lawsuits, bankrupting like the small guys.
Oh yeah, well the large companies do that. You know what I mean? Because they can afford to drag it out for years and pay those court fees and everything. A smaller person can't afford to do that, so they're gonna have to call uncle or do a settlement or something. You know what I mean?
That's why you see a lot of them allowing lawsuits to gun manufacturers and stuff like that when stupid things happen or stupid people make.
But giving 230 protection to big tech giants,
yeah,
who you know what I mean, censor and do all that bullshit. But we see it all the time. You know what I mean? Not only that, but they've always attacked the sponsors of like talk radio. Like, they've gone after Rush the whole 30 years he's been on the radio. And what they do is they get like 10 people and they make a bunch of online bots to where it looks like thousands of people. And then they attack the sponsors, the advertisers on Rush's show during the commercial breaks. We tell them, we can't believe you're supporting this show. If you continue to sponsor this show, we're never buying your product again. And then the sponsor thinks that they have thousands of people angry at them and boycotting them, and a lot of times they'll fold, when really it was just 10 people making themselves look like thousands. And Rush has been able to successfully beat those attacks because he's been able to convince his sponsors that it was 10 people and not thousands. And over time, you know what I mean, the ones they stuck with him, he's still on, they can't take him down. And so I would say that, affect things with your wallet. You know what I mean? I mean, they're in our everyday life as much, but like you said, boycott as much as you can where you can. Maybe try using some different search engines like DuckDuckGo, for example. Anywhere you can use, any different kind of up and coming platforms or competition, sponsor them and boycott the big ones. That's the best I can say on that. But it's one of the big things because that
That's a passive fight.
it hits them where it hurts.
Yeah.
Well, actually, it's a very aggressive fight, and it hits them right where it hurts because it affects their revenue and how much they have to continue forward. It affects how much they can put into putting their agenda forward, how much they can pay people, you know what I mean, all kinds of things. So, yeah, come up with a plan that suits you, the equipment you're gonna need, food, shelter, communications, get yourself familiar with your tools, with your items, practice with them, and stay vigilant because it's coming. And things are going to get real interesting going forward.
That's it.
Yeah. Stay together as a group. Let's not founder now. Let's, try to keep the momentum up. Of course, me and Zach will always be looking for potential rallies and disturbances and what may be coming on. We'll help spread that info out whenever we find it. We may have a couple things of our own that we'll be working on putting together, but we'll let you know about any possibilities when the time is right. Till then, if you are enjoying these videos at all, please take a second, give it a like, subscribe, share to like-minded friends, family, anybody you think might enjoy it. We're just a couple of regular guys with our regular opinions, nothing fancy, no makeup, no nice lighting, but it's real people with real thoughts in the real world.
Yep. Real as it gets.